Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the People's Sanctuary. This is our third official book event in the People's Sanctuary, but it's one of many book events we've had here at Uncle Bobbie's Coffee and Books. My name is Mark Lamont Hill, the owner of Uncle Bobbie's, and we are beyond happy to have with us this evening one of the most important athletes of this generation, one of the most exciting books of the year, and really, hopefully, one of the most impactful conversations we're going to have about sports and politics and race and everything else y'all want to talk about tonight. So we are blessed to have my dear brother and friend Michael Bennett here. Give him a round of applause. I also want to point out that this is not just a great event for us, it's also his first official stop on his book tour. So he chose Uncle Bobbie's, he chose Philadelphia. And also, it's the first day of training camp for the returning NFL champion Super Bowl Eagles that just got better. Can we do one Eagles cheer real quick? E-A-G-L-E-F. You have to get used to that, man. You got to get used to that, man. This is yours.
Thank you.
Welcome, man.
Thank you.
How's it feel to be, first of all, to be in Philadelphia?
I love Philly. I think it's so different from Seattle. I think Seattle's like a cool, laid-back city, but this is like a cool, laid-back city that's more upbeat, and the food is just amazing. People are amazing, and I thought that I would never meet a fan base that was like equivalent to Seattle, but this is yeah, you know, and the fans are real, so it's really just a nice city, and I'm just getting used to it, and because I never lived in downtown or lived in the city, kind of, and being and seeing all the historical significance of Philly and to American history has just been really cool.
Nah, it's a great place to be. You're right. You ain't never gonna see a fan base.
Nah, it's a real cool fan
like
base.
This one. Just don't stop winning though. Nah. It's another side to this.
I know. I know. I've heard. So we got to win to keep the fans.
That's
good.
it, man. We had jails in the stadium for a reason. But beyond just the start of the season, man, you wrote an important book.
Yeah.
You wrote an important book, man, and I'm very, very grateful for. Most athletes are thinking about staying at the top of their game, which you do, winning championships, which you have. But a book? You ain't retired, you ain't ready to retire. Why a book, why now?
I think, you want to find a way to contribute in a way that you could be vulnerable. And I think with the book, it was a way for me to be vulnerable and express my feelings towards issues and be able to, I just wanted to be able to express myself in the book and be able to share and let people know the vision and how I feel about certain things. And I think writing a book while you're playing it's hard to do. I think it's one of those things because a lot of times when people write books, they are retired, so they really can't be judged on the book. And right. I'm putting myself out there. I'm writing about really issues, police brutality, different issues that people are, really concerned about. And I think as an athlete, you have to be able to put yourself out there and be able to share and just show people that you care. I think that's the most important thing that we could do. At the end of the day, I'm not an athlete. I'm just a human being who is trying to become a better human being and want the society to be better. And I think you have to be able to voice your opinion and use your platform. And why not write a book that could change young kids? I think a lot of times kids look at athletes and they just see us as a certain type of role model that we just sell things to them, but we don't really, give them hope or show them issues that pertain to them, especially black and brown kids. And I think, whenever you in a city and you play for a team, you never see the black and brown kids. So it's always our job to find ways to reach them. And when I was in Seattle, I used to bring kids in all the time, whether it was from kids from Native American tribes or whether it was kids from the juvenile detention, just kids all over the city to be able, so they could be able to touch them. And I think helping to writing a book and putting it in schools and letting kids read about what athletes could do and what they can contribute to society is important. And you chose an uncontroversial title, Things That Make White People Uncomfortable. Let me just say that at first they didn't want to put that title on there. Really? They were worried about it, but it was too late. I said that's what I want to name it, and I mentioned it in the interview, and then it was too late. We just went with it. But it's a provocative title, but I think being uncomfortable for everybody is something that we all have to get used to, because there's so many things that we encounter that we don't willing to grow from. And for me, it's about being uncomfortable on a daily basis. And I think writing a book about that and getting the attention of white people, because it is time for white people to be uncomfortable with some of the situations and things that are going on, and to bring them into the conversation is important, I think. And I think that's why I chose the title. And it's just a funny title, too.
It's a great title, man. I read it on the train sometimes just to make white people uncomfortable.
I know. It's funny though, because sometimes I go and I walk into a bookstore, and it's cool to see your own book in the store, and I'll be like, hey, can you find this book, things that make white people uncomfortable? And the people will just start laughing. They'll be like, that's a funny title. Who wrote the book? And I'll be like, I did. And they'll just start.
That's good stuff, man.
That's really cool.
Then you got to take your book and stick it on the front of every shelf in every section. That's the way you sell extra books.
You got to do that.
Cookbooks. Children's books don't matter. Just put your book everywhere. That's what I do.
You gotta do that.
One of the things that have made white people really uncomfortable in the last 2 years.
What is it?
You know, there could be a lot of things, right? Barbecuing, having fun,
salt,
joy.
Salt. What is the substance on your food? This is salt.
Right. It's flavor on the chicken. I've never tasted it before. No, I was gonna say something different. The NFL protests.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick, in particular, started a wave of people who resisted and protested the anthem. Or they weren't protesting the anthem, they were protesting during the anthem, is probably a better way of putting it. And then we saw a wave of players beginning to engage in those protests. You, in fact, you talk about this in the preface of the book, you know, the idea of resisting both our president and some of these demonstrations of patriotism. Talk to me about why you would do that.
I think it was important for us to, you know, when Colin didn't have a chance to be back in the NFL, one thing that we didn't want to happen was to lose the message and lose what he had been fighting for. So, you know, a lot of us wanted to step up and be able to continue to talk about it. And I think for us, protesting all the things that were happening were super important. It was the first time that, you know, usually people think that sports and politics and race don't mix, but at the same time, they do mix, because at the same time we're black, we're dealing with the politics, and we're dealing with racism. And just because we play a sport, that doesn't take us out of those situations. So for us to be in these situations and protest these issues is something that we seen was really important. And I think we wanted to just keep the message going and keep talking about it. And you see, it was something that struck the whole world. People were talking about it all the time, and you could see young kids taking knees. And for us, that was I think that was something that we thought was important. And I think protesting and keeping the legacy of the athletes who came before us, and when it was time to talk, whether it's Harry Evers, Tommy Smith, John Carlos, Bill Russell, just to continue the fight of what we can really do as athletes and what we can really do as people with our platform, is something that we have to continue to contribute to society, regardless of the risks and what it takes to be on this level.
Yeah. There's a narrative going around that started in the White House and Twitter.
Which, the White House of the Cowboys or the White House in the...
We don't like neither in this city, so you might have a better chance of voting for Cowboys than voting for Donald Trump in this city.
Right, for real.
But there's this way that where they framed it as you all aren't patriotic, you don't love America, and you are protesting the soldiers or our flag. Can you, one, respond to that, and two, talk about what actually NFL players are protesting?
I think it's the complete opposite. I think we're doing the most patriotic thing that you could possibly do as a human being, is to fight for other human beings and their rights. I think not only just police brutality, gender issues, women issues, things that are just going on in this world, the Flint, Michigan, water issues, just things that we feel that are important as people. And I think that's the most thing you can do as a patriot, is to fight for the people that you see every day in the communities. And I think people started to get those things twisted, because my father was in the military. A lot of players in the NFL fathers are in the military. So it was never about the military. It was just about the social issues that were going on in the world, and how can we contribute on a higher level.
Contributing on a higher level comes at a price. It looks like Colin Kaepernick has paid that price.
Yeah.
Is he being blackballed in your estimation?
I mean, we can't really, yeah, of course he is. Everybody feels like he's being blackballed, and him not being able to be in the league. If you look at the starting quarterbacks that have played in the NFL and aren't even close to his stats, what he's done. He's been to the Super Bowl, he's won NFC championships, and the idea that he's not playing is just crazy. And we hope that he get another opportunity, but we know what's really happening. And so for him, it's just You know, I talk to him all the time. He's just staying focused and keep training and doing all this other stuff. But obviously, he's been blackballed. We all feel the same way. So,
why weren't you afraid?
I don't know. I think it was just you see him putting himself out there, and you see other players and other people putting themselves out there to be able to contribute. Like I said, for me, it's about finding a way to be a global citizen and be able to contribute, whether it's issues in Palestine, Muslim rights, immigration issues, things that you can do to help other people. And I think that's the most important thing we can do as an individual. Is just how much better can we leave the world for our kids? You know, how well can we be a great ancestor? And I think that's what's important to me, is finding a way to contribute like that.
You talk about family. In the book, you give us a kind of journey through your childhood. Some of it interesting and exciting and good. A lot of it not so warm and fuzzy. Talk to me about your childhood and why that was also important to talk about.
I think for readers, it's important to give them a background story of how the characters are built and how it was built, the story of my family, the story of my mother, my story of the journey of just me, you know, connecting with my biological mother. I think these are the stories that a lot of people deal with, you know, divorce and issues like that. So to show them that I'm vulnerable and I've been through similar situations are things that I think that are important to share with the book, because I don't want to be the superhero who's never ever been flawed before. And I think to show people that you have flaws and show people that you are vulnerable is something that I think that's super important, because they can know that you're real. I think a lot of times you look at a lot of athletes, they portray it as something that's not real, and you cannot live up to those expectations. And I think I wanted to show people like, damn, I've cried, I've felt scars, I've been emotional, I've been through all these different issues, and at the same time, I'm still pushing forward. And I think that's the best thing I could do as a father and a husband, is to keep showing those things. And that's what I wrote about me as a child.
One of the themes that comes out for me really powerfully in the book is the theme of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Who did you have to forgive and why?
For me, it was the journey to connecting to my biological mother. I thought, for me, you know, I talk about, you know, being on Mother's Day. It was my first time as an adult male having my mother there and experiencing what it felt like to have that connection to somebody and be able to forgive them. I felt like as a man, I couldn't love my wife properly if I couldn't, you know, forgive the woman who birthed me. And for me, that was like a crazy journey, and I grew from that, you know. And not only did I do it for myself, I did it for my kids. It's like for them to see me love my mother the way that I can possibly do, it just made me a better father. And so forgiveness for her, and to have empathy and compassion for her story. You know, for a long time, I think a lot of times when you dealing with different issues, there is no dialogue. You know, there's just my side and I'm going against your side, and we never have dialogue. And to have my mother's dialogue and to hear her story and to forgive her was a part of me that I felt like that was growing, not just physically but spiritually. And I think that was just the hardest thing that I ever had to do, because it was me forgiving so many things that I thought that I had been wrong for, but it was just me growing as a man, because I feel like even now as a father, I'm seeing how hard it is to be married, what it is to be a father. It's so difficult, and my mom was so young, 16 years old she had me, so it was like, you know, and by the time she was 22, she already had 5 kids, and it was like, so that's a hard thing to do as a mother with no money and keep moving forward, but for me, that was something that I had to do to grow, and I think it was important.
I got to ask one follow-up on that, which is about your own process of healing. I understand you forgive your mother, and I'm sure that's part of the journey of healing. Did you have to go through any other processes to make sure psychologically and emotionally you were okay?
From that whole story?
Yeah.
I had to just talk to her, you know, and then figure out why. And then I had to cry, because it was like one of those things where I had built up this, you know, the scar tissue, and not like a physical one, but a spiritual scar tissue that you couldn't really see. And I had to break that scar tissue down. And the only way to do that was through verbal conversation, to massage. You know, scar tissue, you got to break it down. And so I had to break myself down. I had to break me and challenge myself to be who I said I was. If I could do all this stuff in the world and travel and give back to people, but how can I can't do it to the closest people in my home? So it was a very difficult thing, and I had to go through my own steps of my own mental, but it grew. It was a lot. But I was lucky because, you know, I had my wife. My wife, she understood how important it was for me to go through that journey. And when you're going through stuff like that, you have to have a partner who is willing to go on those type of journeys with you. And I've just been blessed with a woman who is just, you know, amazing when it comes to stuff like that.
You talk about your family in a very sort of earnest and effortless way. Some people I talk to, celebrities, they only talk about their family when it's time to get out of trouble or get a new contract. You know, like, I gotta feed my family.
Yeah, no. I love my family though. You know, for me, my kids are everything. My wife is everything. I think that's the first step to me. I think as a man, that's what I'm judged on. I'm not really judged on how many sex I get and all the stuff I do. I'm kind of judged on how well of a father I am and how well of a husband that I am. So for me, that's a big challenge. Every day I'm challenging myself to be better than the day before, and I do everything with my family. Travel, I teach at my daughter's school, I coach basketball. I turn down money just to be at home, or I'll take a quicker flight just to be there because I know how important it is for you to be there. And my father was the same way, so I kind of just learned from my parents how to be, you know, a parent that cares and a husband who cares all the time. And so it's just been a crazy journey, but at the same time, my kids are they're everything. Every day I look at my daughters and I see, you know, the future. And I think for me is to make sure that I am there to nurture that future, and not just in a way of, you know, like rah-rah, but to be like, you know, emotional, spiritual, mentally there for them all the time. And I think that's what it takes for me to grow. And I think I'm just challenging myself, you know.
One of the things I love about this book, although it's called Things That Make White People Uncomfortable, is that race is not the only topic that comes up in the book. I'm thinking about you talking about your daughters. This issue of feminism, this issue of women's rights, this issue of looking at the world through different eyes comes up in this book. How did that come about for you?
I think it was just it was a journey. I was able to be around a lot of strong women growing up, you know, and as a man playing sports, it's like, you know, I talk about in the book, like the first thing people tell me when I say I have daughters is like, you better get your shotgun, or you better do this. Like, you got to protect them. And that whole idea of me is like, every time I hear that, I hear the lack of respect for what women can contribute to society, that they always need to be protected. And that's kind of my thing. It's like, you know, it's only like, I can, like 10, 12 people that I know that I ever talked to, and I told them that I had daughters, like, congratulations, you know, like, you're a lucky man, you got, you know, but that never really happens. And so, for me, that was a big challenge too, because it's like, as an athlete, you always judged on your son, who's coming up, who's going to play the sport. And so it was a new growing area for me to be able to have daughters and see what they can do and how they can contribute to society and grow for me, not just in sport, but in other things that they can do. And so with a lot of my friends are, you know, women that are leading the issues that are happening when it comes to gender equality in the workplace. So to be a part of those movements, I think is super important. I think it takes somebody from the other side to recognize that there's an issue, and we've got to look in the mirror and look ourselves and be like, what can I do better as a man to show women that I care for them, and not in just my wife, but women all around the world. So you have to be able to stand up and be able to talk about certain issues.
Is that a challenge in the NFL locker room?
I think that's a challenge to men all over the world. I think men grew up, and I think for men, we grew up in a way of I was talking to my friend Stanley. We were talking about, he's actually here right now, right there. We were talking about this yesterday, and we were talking about manhood, and we were saying that I was telling him that, like, to a man, he's always judged. People always say manhood is about sex. Did you put it down, or how tough are you? But they never talk about what really being a man is, of being emotional, being all these different things, vulnerable, being able to stand up and be able to voice your opinion and to grow as a person. And now we have the opportunity to share these things, you know, from the 1920s to now, where being a man has changed so much. So it's like you have to be able to show them that vulnerability is something that we need to grow. And I think us looking in the mirror and showing that we have been assholes when it comes to women is the truth. You know, we've been very sexist, you know, when it comes to things like that. So it's time for us to be able, even in the NFL, we're trying to do a better job of showing women that they matter. I think the Ray Rice thing, you know, that happened, and it was like, why did it take that issue to finally step up? Before, there was so many issues that were happening that we never ever looked up to. And so we just have to keep moving forward.
The NFL, you know, you said you didn't retire. You ain't retired yet, man. You got at least 3 full seasons, at least 2 more championships with us before you do anything. And yet you're not afraid to critique the NFL. I mean, the question of whether the NFL is integrated or not. I mean, people would say NFL is hella integrated. If anything,
I think it's the truth. I think people can't really argue, because when they look at the facts are the facts. You know, like we say, Jay-Z said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. If you look at the numbers, of the NFL, the coaches, the GMs, the people in the front office. There's not a lot of African American or that many brown people up there. So we can't really be integrated to be able to hold those spots that really matter, those spots that control the people who work in the building and all those different things. And so, you know, we have to be able to talk about those issues. And I think, you know, if they were to challenge me on those issues, I would show them the facts, and they would. So they can't really get mad because it is the truth. All they can do is find ways to create positive change when it comes to those.
There are a couple moments in sports the last couple years where an NFL owner has said something, and I was feeling like, y'all talking like y'all don't own the team, but y'all talking like y'all own the players.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You take that up in the book a little bit.
I know. I think people think it's the only job where, you know, you call the boss the owner, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I always say my employee, you know what I mean? My employer, you know what I mean? Like, I'm an employee of this employer. So you have to,
so-and-so your owner.
Yeah, I'm like, nobody owns me but God, you know? So, but at the end of the day, but it's like, people always talk about those things, and it's kind of hard because it's like, it's the truth. Like, they don't own us. People own the jerseys that we sell or the team but they don't own the individual. And I think while thinking like that, we have to be able to speak our mind and be able to take up the issues that we want to take up, because at the end of the day, like I said, we're not going to be judged on our wins. We're going to be judged on our legacy, how we contribute to our communities. And I think that's the thing that we have to push forward in this next generation of athletes, is to show them how they can really contribute. And I think Colin doing what he did, other guys like Malcolm Jenkins showing how they can talk about issues, whether it's police reform, bail reform, all these different things that guys can do, and keeping young people up and keeping them moving forward on the change that they have, you know. And I think that's all we can do, really.
No, but that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot for one generation, but we got to keep going.
Lot, man. Another thing you've been doing lately that I really appreciate is travel.
Yeah.
Just got back. Was it Senegal?
I was in Africa. Yeah, I was in Africa.
You on the continent of Africa, and what made you want to go there, and what did you learn?
It's a crazy story because I had been doing a project with this I Am the Code. It was a STEM program, man, and it was in Senegal. I picked Senegal one day. I was watching Anthony Bourdain. I was like, I want to go to Senegal. Rest in peace, Anthony Bourdain. Yeah. I mean, he went to Senegal, and the food that he was eating, it was so elegant. I was just like, this is the place I want to go. And so I was like, pick that place. And then the funny part is that I did my DNA with my friend Gina Page, which is African Ancestry, not the other stuff, because that's not the real thing. Right. African Ancestry is the real thing. It tells you to try.
Too, yeah.
And it came back, and I was from Senegal. My ancestors came from Senegal. So I wanted to go there. So this off season I went there. I went to the schools that we helped fund with the STEM programs and the computers that we gave the kids and stuff like that. And so I went back to Africa, and it was a very emotional trip, because when you're there, like every night I would just sit outside, right, and just hear the water, because Senegal is just beautiful with beaches and stuff, and I would just sit outside and the water would hit back and forth. And I would think like, dang, my grandmother and my grandfather, like they got on that boat and they thought they would never come back. Like they lived their whole life wishing they can get back. And I was thinking about my grandfather and how he would seen his daughter just get stolen, you know what I'm saying? And like, she never came back. He was looking every single day to find her, but he never could. You know, she left to this whole nother continent that didn't even have a name at the time. And so she left, and this water's just hitting, and every night, you know, I shed tears, you know, because it was emotional, because it was me bringing my grandmother and grandfather back home. It was the first, because they left thinking they'd never come back to Africa, and I brought them back spiritually. And so for me, that was like, it was just beyond. And then to go to the point of no return, it was just too much. It was just, you go into a place and you see how they treated human beings. They dehumanized human beings, stripped mothers of their babies, stripped people of their dignity, you know. And to be in that place is so spiritual, and at the same time, it's just, you see, and I was writing in my journal, and I was writing that, you know, I'm on this boat thinking that I'm going for a visit for, you know, just to go, and then my grandmother in the same boat, but she's leaving in chains and handcuffs. And then, you know, I'm looking at other people who are going to this thing, and they're taking it as a different journey. They like going to take pictures and stuff. Right. But I'm just going there to just feel the essence of who they were and what they've been through. And for me to go to that point of no return, to look out that hole, the hole is so dark. It's so dark as you walking through there, and you see the steps, and you feel it, and you step at the end, and you just see where they left.
Yeah.
Bodies, they used to say that there were so many sharks hanging around there because they would just throw bodies over the edge. And then there was like a kids prison, and it was like, and then as I look at this house of slaves and look at how the world was divided inside the slaves and the kids and the male taken from the family, I'm like, it's no different from now. The way that, how the structural and institutionalized the way that they're doing things, the police and with the jails and taking kids from their family. You see the same handcuffs that we have today are the same ones that they use at the same time. The same chains that are on people's ankles, they're still things that you see today. And for me, like I said, that was emotional. I couldn't leave. Me and my wife, we cried for hours because it was just so much to take in the essence of who we were as people and who we are now and as we're growing. And it just was something that was really, it was a lot, but it was good though.
That's a life-changing trip. And there was another trip that you didn't take.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all know about it. Was it a year ago? About a year and a half ago. You and a few other NFL players were asked to take a trip to Israel.
Yeah.
That's actually the first time we kind of connected.
Yeah.
They said they'd take some NFL players to Israel, and I would hit you like, don't do it. No.
Don't do it. Don't be a pawn.
Before you hit send on Expedia, call me.
I know.
And
it sounded so good though. It's like free trip, first class. And they said first class, seats laid back. I'm like, okay. We get to eat for free every day. We get per diem. I'm like, okay.
That was the same sales pitch from Senegal.
Yeah, I know, right? But we went there and they wanted us to go, and really at the time I didn't realize, I just said no, but I didn't realize the magnitude of what I was doing. Like sometimes, you walk a journey and you don't really realize the magnitude. I'm pretty sure Colin probably felt the same way. He thought that he would take a knee. Who knew that it would change the world, you know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times we walk in those shadows and we walk in those footsteps and we become, things that we're not expecting to be. And I think when we said no to that trip, it kind of turned into that type of thing. We didn't know that we were speaking up for all these people that we never really knew about. It became the idea of intersectionality, the connection between all these different oppressed people. And the first time that I was like, oh my God, like what is going on over there? Because it wasn't my struggle. But then as I started to research it, it became my struggle. You know what I mean? It became like a global issue, and I think that was something that was, it was a lot. So it was,
I gotta ask you this again, man, because you speak against the prison industrial complex, and racism in the NFL, the occupation of Palestine, gender justice. How do you stay employed?
I've been blessed, man. I think I've been blessed, man. I'm Mandinka, so I'm a warrior by trait. So at the same time, I just kind of I just go with the flow, and I kind of think that, that's what we all should be doing. I think we should all be choosing the good every single day, the real battles, not the social media battles, but the battles that can be fought on the trenches every day. And those are people that we see and people that we don't see that are being affected. You look at different issues and you just wonder, how can you use your platform? How can you express yourself? How can the people see you? And I think for me, that's always what it's been about,
You take on some sacred cows though, man. The NCAA, in your book, you go at the NCAA too.
But there's things that I lived through. I think the NCAA, for me, it was the real things, because I think a lot of times as fans don't connect to the players as people. They connect to them as players, not as the humans that they are. And I think what happens to young players in any sport that doesn't make it, they just become a shell of who they really were, you know what I'm saying? Because they don't have an opportunity to grow because they're kept in this tight box. And, this athlete who don't go there, stay right here, go to the gym. They can't never dip off to a library or dip off to, to pledge in a fraternity. It's so hard to do, it's like some coaches won't even let you do that, Right. And it's like, so you
treat it like a business. They treat you like you're a pro in college.
Yeah, and so it's a lot of things that happen to players and stuff that their stories don't get told. And how many guys in the NFL or just college or NBA that read that chapter and they talk to me about it, and it's just like, bro, thank you, because it's the truth. A lot of people end up with this post-traumatic stress disorder, and they don't really know that they're dealing with this depression from being used and just, and not being able to have this chance to grow. So I just wanted to be able to share that journey that, I felt like a lot of guys go through, and they needed to have their story told.
How do we fix it? How do we fix a system like the NCAA that makes billions off of athletes, largely black and brown athletes? How do we do that? What do you recommend? You king of the NCAA now.
No, I think they have to be able to find a way to create some type of opportunities to monetize and give these young kids the money, you know, not little stipends, but if a kid is selling, to get some of that money back, or be able to create some type of fund for the players, or give them something. You know, a lot of guys, it's not even so much about money too, it's about injuries too. A lot of players, they get real injuries that they don't know that they got, because in college they have no voice. They don't have the voice of the NFL to speak up about CTE or concussion issues and things that they're happening to them, depression, and they just don't have a voice. And so, I mean, it's time for players and people to hear their stories and be able to give them a real voice.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's, I guess, by the way, if there are questions, raise your hand if you have a question. All right. My experience tells me it's more than these 4 people going to have questions. So if you have a question, please line up in the middle aisle here behind this microphone, and we will take your questions in just a few minutes, okay? So if you have a question, you should get up now and line up. I suspect more than 4 people are going to get in this line. So and I just want to say preemptively, only questions. Those are brief statements that end in question marks.
Yeah.
Don't sell us your new mixtape.
Yeah. Check this out. Yeah.
Right. Your question.
Do you know Drake? Yes, I know Drake, but I cannot give him your CD.
Right, exactly. Drake or Pusha T?
Yeah. Pusha T.
He's perfect, y'all. Yeah, he really is.
Pusha T killed him, though.
Oh,
man.
my God.
He did. My brother was like, he was just so rude. He went into his personal life in a way that you shouldn't go at anybody, you know?
Yeah, he definitely overdid it.
He
overachieved on that.
He was like
Drake was like, you're old. He was like, you have a child
that you never see.
Right. Like, damn,
you're a bad father. Like,
right. Ouch.
Ouch. And your dad was a horrible dad. And your mom is single. Like, oh,
she's
God.
never been married. No one loves her. I'm like, damn, Push. Like, he ain't rap like he had problems at home. Man, trauma. What do you know? More than 4 people are in that line. To get to all of them. Before we do, though, there is the elephant in the room, perhaps. We were supposed to have you in April, and we're grateful you came back. It was delayed because of a legal matter.
Yeah.
Can you talk about it?
Not really, but I'm just moving forward, trying to do what I can. But you know, like when you become,
nah, nigga, nah.
Nah, it's just, you know, you just become a target when you become certain things. It's not, and you have to just keep moving forward and fight the system the best way you can, and that's what I'm doing now. So we'll see.
That's it. Respect, respect, respect. So we're gonna take some questions from the audience, man. I done asked enough. Brother right here has a 10-second question.
I understand we all, you know, this whole book and you talking right now is making everybody more consciously aware and socially aware of everything that's going on in the world. We understand the problem, right? What's the solution for everything for, you know, for us not to keep talking but actually
for everything?
Yeah.
Oh, you got
what is the solution
Jesus come
for
back.
everything?
Jesus come back. I mean, that's all I think if you just keep fighting, I think you just have to find ways to contribute to your individual areas. And I think the challenge is, how can we challenge ourselves every day to treat the people right next to us in a better way? I think we started to love ourselves. We started to feel more eccentric about who we are. And I think that's the true battle. And I think for me, like I said, I try to do as much as I can every single day. And I think we just all have to just continuously do everything that we can. Vote, you know, put the right people in office, you know, go up and pay for our schools, do what we can. Buy from black-owned businesses, contribute to your community, find ways to just do more. And I think that's the only real thing we do. I don't have a solution for every single problem. I wish I did. The world would be a lot easier. I would have another job, you know, but that's how I feel, is that you just have to do our own 1/11th and just keep fighting and fighting.
He's being humble, though. This book offers some solutions. And so as you read the book, there are some very specific solutions to everything from the NCAA problems to the NFL, to some of our structural issues with families, to the power of healing and forgiveness. So he's too humble to tell you this book solves like 75% of the world's problems. So that's it. Thank you for your question, brother.
Sorry about that. I wish I would want to go into
I'm the hype. That's what I'm here for, man.
The long
I'm like Scoop and
but...
Scrap. Come on. Old people get it. Come on.
All right. Hey, thank you for choosing Philadelphia. I just want to know, man, it's like you a beast on the field. I watched you in Seattle, but you such a humble brother. How do you connect with that rage? That's what,
That's a good question.
They got you because you good. I see what you do. I watch your stats. I see how you in the Seattle. But listening to you and watch you and read your book, you're a very humble brother. But how do you connect with their rage? Make it happen.
I think I grew up I'm from Louisiana, so I'm from a small town. So for me, I spent the last summer, everybody in my family is preachers. So the whole time we grew up, it was all about the Bible, and we always spent time in Sunday. So I was always humble growing up because that's just the way that we were taught to be. And I think I had to take my parents are really good parents, but I think it was my grandparents who really kind of instilled that humbleness in me. And I think that's what I just kept to this day. Like still to this day, whenever I have an issue, I skip past my dad and go straight to my grandpa. You know, sometimes my dad's like, I ain't know that, but like some stuff I can't tell you, Dad. You know, so I have to give it to my grandparents.
Wait, but hold on, though, because in about, just June, right?
Yeah.
So in 8 months, I'm gonna need you to take Tom Brady's head off.
Oh,
right?
that's not an issue for me. I mean,
So how do you get into that mental space? Because right now you're kind of like, yeah, Tom, I'm gonna tackle you very aggressively, and I'm gonna knock. No, when are you just ready to? When you gonna feel? How do you get into that next level, the next zone? Is there like a ritual for getting?
Yeah, I kind of I eat some salmon, then I listen to Roy Ayers, Everybody Loves the Sunshine. And I listen to that, Marvin Gaye, I Want You, and then I'm ready, you know what I'm saying?
You just turned up, right?
I chill for a minute, and then right before I hit the Future, and then I get ready.
Got you.
Yeah.
That's
but no,
what
I think it's all about like meditating and yoga and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I just trying to keep that side of me, because that is a big problem with the NFL. I think a lot of times what happens with the domestic abuse and things like that happen with the wives and the families, that guys have so much rage, but they don't know how to contain it or be able to let it out in positive outlets, and it ends up becoming something really negative. So finding ways to do that is something I think that every young player or everybody should do probably too.
That's dope. Thank you for that. Yes, sir.
So for the movement of the NFL to happen, it needs a group effort. And
talk a little closer to the mic so people back can hear you.
And last year, Des Bryant said something that struck me. When he was asked about the anthem, he says, "I have nothing to say about that. I got a family to feed." So it's more of a two-part question. One, what do you say to the superstars who are bringing in the millions and signing the multi-million-dollar deals and contracts? And also, what do you say to the other 51 guys who aren't making millions but also need to feed their families? How do you get them on board this process without alienating them and making sure that they can still eat?
I think that's a really hard thing to do, because a lot of people have their own battles and their own struggles. But at the end of the day, we have to look at the world not from just our point of view, but from a global point of view. And I think that's the thing that a lot of guys, we have to get them to understand and get them to read. But I think as athletes, we have very great leadership. Nothing against Michael Jordan, but when you have LeBron James, a guy who is the best athlete in the whole world, who takes up social issues, it kind of sets the stage for all of us to not to be scared. And you have a guy like Colin Kaepernick who steps up and puts everything on the line. It gives us the opportunity to not be scared. And I think for guys like that, we have to be able to really show who we are. I think at that time, when we do that, we just standing behind these helmets and trying to shield ourselves from what the world's true realities are. And the true reality of all this is that we are black men in America. And there's certain things that come with this skin and these stories, and we can't all of a sudden get this money and forget those struggles and forget these truths. And I think that's the thing we have to be able to teach young athletes that are coming up.
Absolutely. Next question.
How you doing, Michael? My name's Lafayette.
How you doing?
In the wake of the owners making this new rule out now and violating y'all constitutional rights, as a fan, what can we do to help support y'all in y'all struggle and going forward?
So for those, just real quick, so audience who doesn't know to understand the question, the NFL just instituted a rule. Prior, when the players were protesting during the national anthem, there was no actual rule against it. This year, they actually instituted a rule saying that players must stand during the national anthem, and if they do not stand, they must wait in the locker room.
Yeah.
So that's a rule as of 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was asking, how can fans help resist this rule?
Yeah. I think is the NFL is a business, you know what I'm saying? And their whole bottom line is a profit, you know. And for us, I think what people can do around the NFL is to start supporting these social causes that guys are doing, showing up to the charity events, and giving guys the power to be able to speak. I think a lot of times guys feel like they don't have that connection to everybody, so people are going to support them. I think the best thing we could do as people is support the players who are stepping up into these issues, whether it's through their causes, their foundations, or being able to speak on those certain things. Because at the end of the day, the NFL is guaranteed the contract. So whether people watch the games or not, they're still getting the $10 billion from the teams they signed it up. But what we can do is would support all the players and let them know that the people are behind them. And I think when people realize that people are behind them, they're ready to go out there and step up and be vulnerable in different situations. And I think that's something that we all can do, is show the support. I think Colin Kaepernick is a person that everybody supported, but there's a lot of guys who are still in the NFL or they're still trying to fight these fights, like Malcolm Jenkins and the other guys around the whole NFL that are still doing these things, and they still need the support of the people. So you could just support them through all their different things. So that's all I can say.
I love that you identify as a feminist. And so I'm wondering, especially for the young black men in the high school that I teach at, what advice you would have for them in order to understand it, practice it, especially if they're like, I ain't really about that life.
I think what I tell all the young players and talk to the young people that I talk to is, now in the world, it's time for us to put ourselves in other people's shoes and to think that how would you feel if you were being approached like that? And I think that's what the people have to do, the young guys, like put themselves in the women's situations and understand what women go through and understanding how important it is to support the women that are around us. And I think that is the biggest thing that we can do as athletes, is show how important that women's contributions to society are. And I think that's what I tell my young people every day, is like, man, look at all the civil rights movements or the movements before. Harriet Tubman was running by, she was a woman freeing slaves, you know what I'm saying? There was a lot of men who were scared, you know what I'm saying? But a woman stepped up and did that, you know what I'm saying? Like Angela Davis, Fannie Lou, like all these people that are like warriors, women that are still today. You look at Linda, Sora, you know, Patrice, and all these people that are just stepping up and just putting themselves out there. And there's women who are never been scared to step up, and it's important. And it's also important for young men and women to realize that women are the people who birthed us. So they have a very significant contribution already to the world, because they're the ones who holds the key to the life of the world. So it's like we have to see that as young men, that how important a woman is from just that standpoint from the beginning. Is without them, there is no existence, you know. So
thank you for that question. That's a great answer, man. Brother.
Hey, how you doing? First, I have a two-part question.
Two-part.
Oh, you give us the first part.
All right. I respect you as a family man. So, as a black man and a person who hasn't had a father figure, what would you suggest somebody who's a newlywed and a father, how to become a better husband and a better father?
I think it's simple. Become selfless. Put your family first, regardless of how you feel. I think you put yourself first, put them first in a way that can be, you know, matched. You know, show your wife that every day that she is the most important thing in your life. And by you showing your kids how you feel about your wife, that's already a growing method right there. And that's what I try to do every day, is to show them how important they are. So, you know, just be selfless, man. That's the most important thing I feel like you can do, is just become a selfless individual.
Absolutely.
That's all I can tell you. But that's a hard thing to do, though, because it's like, you born selfish, you know. Right. You born selfish. So it's a challenge to become selfless. And I think that's, if you can do that, you know, put your wife's needs in front of you sometime in a way that is not, you know, catty, where you like, look, I'm doing this for you, but you're doing it because you're willing to do it. And I think that becomes a routine, and that routine becomes a habit. And I think that's how you do it.
Thank you.
Have you learned the Eagles fight song yet?
No.
We're gonna do that later. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
You've been here like 4 hours.
I know. I've been here like. I do know the song to Black Panther, though. That was a good movie.
Look.
Wakanda.
You in there? You good then? You good?
So peace. I'm Philip Roundtree. I'm a therapist here in the city of Philadelphia. Props for you, Brother Mark, for rocking the shirt. I'm selling them out to Trump, so feel free to meet me outside. But my question is, I know you credit your wife as well as your inner resilience as to why you've been able to work through childhood trauma. Have you utilized formal services like a therapist to process these experiences?
No, I haven't used a therapist for this particular situation. Maybe it probably would have happened faster if I did, but sometimes I feel like in life you just gotta hit it head on and just attack those issues without having that person to really feel that pain. I think for me it was really about feeling that pain and looking in the mirror and being like, I have these scars, and I have to be able to recognize that I have scars so I can be able to treat them. And like I said, I think the treatment was to be able to have that conversation with that person, you know, and didn't need a third person to tell me that I should forgive her, because I know that I should forgive her, or I know that she knows that what she did is wrong. And I think that was the thing for me, but I never seen a therapist for that particular situation.
But highlight, he said, it would have happened faster if he had seen one.
Yeah, probably would have.
And some of us don't have the reflective ability, because you're unusually self-aware, and have resources and other things. So for a lot of us, all of us, we should all still see a therapist. And after you see a therapist, if you decide you don't need a therapist, let's do that. But start by seeing one.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I think therapists are good. I think for certain situations and trauma, you know, they definitely need to be seen. I've seen the work that I do in the juvenile detention centers. That a lot of kids are dealing with so much trauma, and it's like they're not really bad. They just really been through a lot of trauma that nobody's ever been able to talk to them about. And they
That's
haven't
exactly
been able
right.
to
That's it.
contribute to it. So
That's it. Untreated trauma. I see more people getting in line. We have about 6 minutes before we get into the book signing part. So here's what we're gonna do. I have a sixth sense that these questions are gonna overlap. So what I want the first three brothers to do right here in line is ask their question together. Like you ask yours, you ask yours.
like a dance.
Right, and then you'll respond to all three.
Let me start mine. I like to see you come to my job once a week, every week.
Whoa, I don't know what job we're talking about. So
Yeah.
he might be like, I work at Vanity. No. He said you at my job every week. I don't know what job you're talking about. You so talk to the microphone, no, brother.
But this is my question.
Okay, thank you. Can you talk to the microphone, no, just so the cameras can pick you
okay.
up?
All right. This is my. No, I see you at my job every week, once a week, every week. This is my question to you, Michael Bennett. After the protest.
Can you talk to the mic a little bit more?
After the protest, on one knee in the book, what is your next step?
Okay.
For equality.
Hold on, I'm gonna let all three questions get asked first. One second, I'm gonna get all the questions in, just because they're gonna overlap, I promise.
Real quick, my name is Chris Murray. I'm from WURD Radio. I host a Saturday sports show from 11 to 1, and I'm also a freelance writer for the Philadelphia Sunday Sun.
And he's a Virgo. Go ahead, your question.
My question to you, Mike. Now that the NFL has this policy, will the players themselves maybe act, en masse, against it? In other words, will this be a situation where you all respond with another protest or some kind of situation where you go, because a lot of times my listeners say that the players should react by either not playing or just taking some type of stand.
Got your question. I'm gonna make sure we're gonna tie it all together. Yep. They're gonna connect. Go, last one, brother.
Good at this. You good at this.
My question is, when you retire, how do you plan to continue using your platform to shed more light on the issues that you've outlined in your book? You said
Look at God!
You said it!
Look at God! Amen! The future, both for you and NFL players. Boom.
Like you said, I think we have to be able to, find ways to not tell what we're going to do. So for me to tell you what we're going to do would be just bad, because then it wouldn't work anymore, because people will get word of it. So whatever we do, it'll be a surprise. But I think the most important thing is not to just protest, is to contribute. And I think that's the most important thing we can do, is to continue to contribute to society in a positive way, not just through protest, but building bridges from different communities, giving people voices that don't have a voice, giving grants to people that never get grants, all these different charities or all these different foundations that are doing different things, and lending our voice to them. And I think that's something that we can do in the future.
Thank you all. Thank you all for those questions. All right. These last two brothers have questions. I'm not sure they're going to be as connected, but we're going to make it work.
That was nice, though. That was nice, though. What's the lottery numbers?
Yeah, I wish, man, if I knew, I wouldn't be here.
Hey, what's going on, Mark?
How you doing, brother?
I met you on Sunday. I was talking to you in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
My mom,
I remember.
My cousin.
Yep.
Mike, how you doing?
Good. Everybody got a backstory. Yeah, I know you. I saw you. You was driving. I was in my car. I met twice. You was listening to Drake. I saw your head. You said, nah, he lost. Pusha T. You was on Instagram. Nah, I'm joking.
That's how I mean, though. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous. So
don't be nervous.
Don't be nervous. You're family, brother.
First comment.
We need the question only in the interest of time.
My bad.
Yeah.
So I was reading the book you have in your store called $40 Million Slaves.
Yeah, I read that book.
And what really caught my attention was, the image or the narrative that's been formed ever since African Americans have been allowed the opportunity to become part of a sporting event or whatever like that. You coming to Philly now and teaming up with players like Malcolm Jenkins, who's also in the same position as you, speaking against social injustices and stuff like that. What's your plan, or what do you plan on doing with him, and teammates to, kind of educate young black males or young black children in general for the future and everything like that?
Okay, that's a good question, but I think...
Let's pause and get them all the questions in. Yes.
How's it going, Mike, thanks for coming out. Just to piggyback off of what he was saying, my question ties back to the youth who are growing up in a society where the President of the United States are making the faces of the NFL, the players, public enemy number one for exercising their First Amendment right. Us being adults, we can see through the riffraff, but there are young black children all across the country who are confused and they don't know why the players are being scrutinized for something that they are told every day in school is their God-given right. What would you say to those children?
Gotcha. So we got 2 questions about engaging the youth, the young people, and then we're gonna have this final question right here with my dear brother.
I have a different kind of question for you. If you're fast forwarding the clock, if you're fast forwarding the clock and it's June 12th, 2019, outside of winning the Super Bowl, what needs to happen in your personal life for you to feel as though you've been successful?
Okay, so that's good. So 2 parts. One, let's start with you.
That's a random ass question.
He's like June 12th.
I mean, I got a list of things, but yeah.
Well, so one, how do we engage the youth?
I think for me,
and 2, what do you in a year from now, what would a successful year look like for you?
For me, I think to really get the essence of Philly, we have to go out and meet with community leaders. So this is my first time being in Philly. So for me, in Seattle, we would go to the parts of the city that the Seahawks would never go to, and then we would bring their stories to life. And for me, that's what it's about now, is to go into the parts of Philly that usually players don't go to and be in there, whether it's in the juvenile detention centers and parts of town that people won't go, bringing community, busing kids in. I used to bus kids in every weekend to the facility and let them see different things and create internship programs for them. So that's the things I want to do in Philly, is to go out and talk to the leaders and find out the programs that I can contribute to and bring to light. Another thing that we did in Seattle was to be able to bring the issues up that maybe that I didn't know about, that another guy wanted to talk about, we would connect them. So about connecting people and collaborating in a way that is usually not done, because the organization connects to the issues that are philanthropic. They're not really connected to the activists and what it is to the community. So we have to bring that part back and build that bridge to the city. And I think that's something that I want to do. And I think I want to take as many questions, take as many names of companies and people that we need to meet with to make these things happen. And for me, if I can change, 1 or 2 people's lives in 1 year, hopefully I can change more, but that's a successful year for me. And I think that's the thing, obviously winning the Super Bowl for the city is something that's cool for the city. But for me, it would be getting to know people and indulging myself in the city, and I think that's something I think is super important.
We'll take both. We'll take 1 Super Bowl.
You take another Super Bowl?
Yeah, and 3 saved kids.
3 saved kids.
In the next 12 months.
Yeah, because it becomes like the multiplying tree. You plant one root, you plant one seed, and that tree grows, and that kid tells another kid, and that kid tells another kid, and you just become all these different branches, and you have that butterfly effect. And I think that's what I want to do while I'm in this field.
But let's not gloss over the Super Bowl thing. I think I'm being pretty clear. I need 1 more Super Bowl.
That'd be nice. Of course, it's always good to have the Super Bowl rings, but what's more important, the kids or the trophy? Look, the city's divided.
Welcome to Philadelphia, where that question prompts a pause. Everybody I know what I'm feeling in my spirit.
Yeah, but what should I really do?
But on today, I'm gonna say no. All right, family. Another round of applause for Michael Bennett.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for coming out. I know you guys could be doing anything, and it's just an honor to be able to be in front of people. I'm grateful. I'm humbled by the audience and every opportunity to meet people and know that people are really listening to the issues that we're talking about and being able to contribute to it. For me, like I said, it's humbling, and I'm just really thankful, and I thank God every day that I get to meet people. And thank you guys for coming out.
Man, you stand and no, listen, y'all. This man stands stands in a tradition. First of all, he came straight from training camp today. Like day one, he came straight here afterward. That's important, but more importantly, at a moment where so many athletes are worried about how much money they're going to get, how many endorsements they can save, how many likes they can get, how many tweets they can get retweeted, he's focused on justice. He stands in a tradition of Muhammad Ali, of Jim Brown. It's important to recognize that because these don't come very often. So please, one more time, give a round of applause to our dear brother Michael Bennett. Welcome to Philadelphia.
Thank you, guys.